Friday.
Great.
Oh, yeah, thank God it is Friday.
No, it's Saturday.
Boom.
I don't think we have to maintain the illusion that we are talking live.
Do we
Hey, people
need to maintain
need
that illusion?
I don't know, because like when it's like seeing behind the scenes of like a Superman movie and you see the guy in the suit and there's like a green screen behind him and he's in a harness, it just takes some away from me. I just want to see like Superman flying through the sky.
Just admitting, you're comparing the fact of us admitting that we're not currently talking live to the internet right now is akin to seeing a guy in a Superman harness?
100%, yeah.
Like, this is not a fancy curtain to look behind. This is just draped in the living room.
Oh, that's a good point. I just made that point with the green screen behind us. Damn it, I didn't think about that.
Hey, point is, it's a round table, and thanks for joining us, everybody. It's Friday currently, you're watching this Saturday because it's not up. And there you go, you know our secret. This week, lots of fun stuff happened this week, so what we decided we're gonna do this week is we each picked our favorite little bit of news story, and we're going to talk about those in turn. But before we get to that, we all wanted to talk about this leaked trailer for Batman vs. Superman.
Yeah.
So they did a big announcement where you can go watch it in IMAX theaters. There might still be tickets available. That's Monday, April 20th is when that's going down.
It's like a 15-minute IMAX event, so I'm not sure what the other 14 minutes is going to be other than this trailer.
I'm not really sure. It might be something really cool. So go.
That's true.
If you don't mind waiting in a line, I imagine you'd go check it out.
Yeah.
Or wait 9 minutes later and it'll probably be online. But we get a cell phone vid of the trailer from Chile or something like that.
I think so. Yeah.
A Chilean cell phone. So anyway, what do we think about the trailer?
I almost didn't watch it. I was gonna put that out there because I wanted the pure HD experience.
It's always a trick when it's a leak.
I did it for you people. I did it for you, okay?
He takes his job very seriously.
Extremely. Okay.
Some of the time.
I was a little scared because people were like a little like about it who I'd heard who had seen it before I did. I saw it and I was like, I'm pumped. This movie looks awesome. This is what I was expecting and hoping, and it looks rad. Like, I don't know why people are hypercritical about it because I thought it was an effective, cool teaser, and it wasn't even in HD.
I think it was great the way they introduced Batman. I mean, like, that suit really does resemble Dark Knight Returns.
My reaction to the trailer was like, gee, that was Snyder-esque, which I think is the source of all of the divisiveness. Like, if you are excited about Zack Snyder directing DC movies and superhero movies, then this gets you pretty f***ing pumped.
Yeah.
If you're like, oh, that guy, I'm so tired of him, then you're like, ugh, this movie's gonna be such a chore. As I was watching it, I'm like, I remember I loved 300. The whole movie was just a fist-pumping festival of fun. And I'm always hopeful that he'll pull that out again. Like,
I'm right there with you. I love 300, and I think Zack Snyder has been sort of going progressively downhill ever since. But I mean, just for me, and I'm right there with you. I would love that attitude, that energy from 300. But that's the thing that I don't think this teaser had at all. It was so heavy, and I don't need it to be like lighthearted Avengers fun. I'm not asking every superhero movie to be like that. But this just felt so heavy. It felt like a chore, I feel like, is the right term. Like, the movie feels like it's going to be hard to sit through.
I love it. I got to be honest. I love that what Marvel does great. But I think that if DC tried to do the same thing, it would come off weird.
Oh, absolutely.
I think, they're dealing with heavier topics. The first movie was dealing with, there was a giant city that got destroyed and a lot of people died. And, this movie is about responsibility of Superman dealing with it. But not just that. It's about, how people would treat a guy who actually had God powers and people treating him as a god, which, I think we're all used to this Boy Scout Superman of sort of like showing up and saving a cat from a tree. And everyone's like, thanks, Superman. And this is about like, crazy people in the real world acting crazy and starting worshiping this guy because he can fly and he can pick up helicopters. And I find that fascinating.
I do think that is an interesting part of the story. If it goes weird, I think that would be good.
Yeah.
It has this sort of Mad Max cult vibe to it a little bit, like the people with the face paint and stuff. Like, so if we're focusing on like weird sort of death cults for Superman kind of thing, like that might be a super bizarre direction to go, which would be pretty cool.
Well, and it's got Batman in the mix, and you can't make Batman too lighthearted and fun because that would be ridiculous.
I mean, for me, I loved Man of Steel. I'm one of the people that absolutely loved the movie, but I do want to know that this movie isn't going to be all dark all the time.
Because Man of Steel had some moments that had some cheeky kind of moments that were fun, and the one thing that I appreciated about Man of Steel was it was sort of not Snyder-esque in the fact that, I mean, outside of the stuff from Krypton at the beginning, like there weren't these giant, like completely CG landscapes.
Yeah. Right.
Which feel like Sucker Punch, feel like Watchmen. Big chunk of this trailer is like this giant CG cityscape, and I'm like, I don't want that.
And that's aesthetically, and you know, I love Zack Snyder because he's a geek. I also love him because I believe aesthetically he's the one guy who really has the comic book look down. I think that he can create these worlds, and I think the way he meshes CGI with the way he directs things. For me, growing up reading comic books, you know, as a kid, this is what I always hoped to see, the way he directs these movies. And so maybe that's a shallow sort of outlook on the whole thing, but that makes me excited.
No, I don't think it's shallow at all. I mean, look, it's the same way we talk about any other director of any other film. Like, if you like Christopher Nolan, you're going to be excited about the next Christopher Nolan film. If you don't like Zack Snyder, you're not going to be excited about Dawn of Justice. You know, I mean, that's sort of the nature of the medium. It's a shame in some ways because, you know, the conversation about all of DC moviedom becomes about whether or not you like Zack Snyder.
Yeah, it really does.
And it's if we're able to just sit and watch the movie and judge it as the movie instead of like just disconnect yourself from like, oh God, I hate it when Zack Snyder does whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it might be a great movie for all I know.
Well, there's a handful of directors that are just like that. Like, a Zack Snyder movie is a Zack Snyder movie. A Wes Anderson movie is a Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah, very much so.
You know, a Steven Spielberg movie is a Steven Spielberg movie, but it doesn't remind you of that with every frame of film. It just looks like a movie that happens to, you know, feel a certain way in whole. Zack Snyder's like, oh no, you are watching my work.
You are watching my movie right now. Which is admirable in a lot of ways.
Taking a step back to the trailer again, what did you guys think of the Batman voice? That little bit of Batman voice they
that was
in there,
weird.
right?
Yeah.
Kind of mechanized voice.
It didn't sound anything like Affleck.
Yeah.
In fact, it wasn't until the second time I watched the trailer I was like, I guess that is Batman. Like, I didn't even think it was Batman talking. If that's the new, instead of the standard Christian Bale, Batman. Like, instead of like Affleck attempting one of those, they've arrowed it.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like we you know, when we watch Arrow or Flash, because he does that too, it's like, why doesn't Batman do this? He's like a master of technology, and I think it's a great idea, and it also takes a lot of the. Now you actually just have to decide if you like Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne and as Batman without judging the Batman voice. Because I feel like everyone is completely on board with Christian Bale being Batman, except for that Batman voice.
Yeah.
But it's funny because it's so ingrained in me to expect like superhero voice that it actually bumped me in Daredevil when he didn't really have a superhero voice.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, you're just talking like, how do people not know that?
Well, Matt Murdock's not famous
Murdock.
or rich or like a public figure.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
a good point.
Oliver Queen is, Bruce Wayne is. Yes, like somebody would eventually recognize Matt Murdock's
like
voice.
Karen Page in
but
episode
like,
1.
But even if that's the case, it's still like, but you go, but he's blind, so it certainly couldn't be him.
He really has the best like secret identity.
Yeah, like
ever.
Clark Kent is just so like demure in real life that certainly it couldn't be him. Yeah, screw that.
Never the quiet ones.
Like Matt Murdock's blind. Like nobody does that level of parkour and is blind.
That's true. So anyway, all that said, caveats aside, like it's coming off of a cell phone from Chile, so we'll watch it again on Monday and you know, rethink it maybe. Okay, so that's that. So let's go. You brought notes, so I want to start with you.
I did bring notes, and this does tie in real nicely because it is still DC and it's still about directors. Like one of the big news items of the week was that Wonder Woman lost Michelle McLaren, and like 48 hours later, they had a new director. So they were on top of that.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder how long that partnership had been dissolving.
Yeah.
Like probably for quite some time.
Ever since she brought up Sidekick Tiger, they were looking for an out. It was like a first date gone wrong in the first 10 minutes, and they were like looking for an out the entire time.
Creative differences, which even this you know, Wired article that I printed out, you know, they're like, that's code for like literally anything could have happened.
Yeah.
Basically, you should only worry about creative differences and what that means, you know, what the details are. I think of it as like gossip about other people's sex lives. Like, you really should only care if you're planning on getting in a relationship with either party in the future. So, like, if you're a director who's going to work with Warner Brothers or a studio who's going to work with Michelle McLaren, maybe you want the details.
Right.
The rest of us, we should be big enough to not care. Wonder Woman's been such a famously non-starting project.
Yes.
Like Joss Whedon couldn't get it off the ground, and he's Joss Whedon. Not only have there been different versions and different reboots of Wonder Woman's over the years, there's been like vastly opposite ends of the spectrum versions of Wonder Woman and her mythology. So it just seems like maybe there was like sidekick tiger, that's a deal breaker for somebody.
All of a sudden it became a deal breaker.
It was supposed to be that, apparently, and the other rumor was just time period. People, because there's always been that question of, is it current or is it like based on World War II? Like, you know, that was also part of the discussion apparently. And I also just think it's indicative of DC still not exactly knowing, they know they want to do all these movies of these solo characters, but how they tie it together, because they're doing the inverse version where they're sort of doing Justice League first.
Yeah.
And how to do the inverse version, I think they're still trying to figure that out.
Going on to Michelle McLaren's replacement, Patty Jenkins,
Cool with that.
is cool with that. It's interesting because that, you know, she was up to do Thor, or she worked on Thor 2 for a little while, and then left under very similar circumstances. Left Marvel. So it'll be interesting to see her take on the superhero thing, because Monster is like, I don't see how that translates to to a superhero movie, which is great. You know, maybe she's a big fan and maybe she's got a great take, and that's awesome, and we'll see.
One of the reasons I find, you know, any news regarding directors out of the DC universe is because so far the DC universe, such as it is just 100% Zack Snyder, and that's super polarizing. We discussed that at length. And so whoever comes and directs the subsequent individual character movies is, you know, has to work in a universe that kind of only Zack Snyder created. Like, anyone who works on a Wonder Woman movie or a, you know, Aquaman or whatever else you got going, you've got to, like, you bring your own vision to it, and I hope it does diverge at least a little bit from the Zack Snyder aesthetic, but it's got to fit into the same universe as Zack Snyder, who is very Zack Snyder.
You're beholden to a very specific sort of version of Wonder Woman at that point.
You can only go so many gamma corrections above Zack Snyder before it looks like you're not in the same universe.
Right, exactly.
But I also feel like, as a DC fan, like, DC comics always felt very different. I feel like Marvel felt like more of a world that was together. I always felt like Batman books were much darker than, like, Aquaman books that were much, you know, different than Flash books. And I think that there is going to be a little more leeway there. Like, for instance, you know, bringing up Aquaman, the rumors like James Wan maybe being the guy they're going after that, which is fascinating.
Which after Furious 7, like, I could totally see that. It like tonally, visually and tonally and everything too. Like that, it's not a stretch for him to mesh with that Zack Snyder universe.
Exactly. And so I think, you know, that's really interesting. Of course, they're going after, you know, the guys behind Lego Movie for writing The Flash and possibly directing The Flash. So they're making some interesting, and of course David Ayer, Suicide Squad. They're making some interesting choices.
You know, it's funny though, when they lost Michelle, I was kind of like, well, now what are they going to do? Are they going to stick to that thing that they were so hard sticking to of, well, we have to have a female director for Wonder Woman, and then, you know, like you said, like within a couple days was like, yeah, we got another female director, which, you know, on the one hand, it's like, I just want the best director for it, and if you're stuck on this female thing, why wasn't the writer female?
It's kind of a weird thing, because I'm totally with you. Like, I want female voices in cinema, in big budget cinema. It needs to be there.
Yeah.
I also need you to make a good movie.
Yeah.
So if it's like a rush job that you're having to fit a square peg in a round hole because of this edict you have, like, I don't know. You know, it might be cutting off your nose to spite your face. But, but on the other side of that coin, because there's three sides to this coin now, I think, like, I do applaud them for making sure they're getting a female voice.
I just think it's amazing that they clearly had they clearly had her on deck.
Yeah.
Like, it was,
she was queued up.
It would have been such a PR disaster, honestly, if they had picked up a male director that was, say, not Joss Whedon. I feel like they could have gotten away with Joss Whedon if they'd managed to do that, but almost any other dude.
If they had managed to get Joss Whedon, that would have been a whole other kind of coup. We would have opened with that.
Yeah, right. You mean not the trailer that was off a Chilean
cell phone trailer. So hopefully there's no more hiccups and that keeps going, because I'm curious as all hell. Okay, well, I'll go next since I'm sitting immediately to your right. I was really interested to see that Matthew Vaughn is being rumored to start working on a Flash Gordon movie. One, I think Matthew Vaughn is one of the few guys out there that makes different types of movies but it's still his voice.
Yes.
You know? Going all the way back to Stardust and Layer Cake and then a big studio movie, X-Men First Class, and then Kingsman. Like, they all have these different vibes. Kick-Ass, obviously, too. Yeah. They all kind of have a different vibe, but they're Matthew Vaughn movies without hitting you over the head and saying, like, yeah, this is a Matthew Vaughn movie.
Yeah.
But I thoroughly love The Kingsman.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And for him to do Flash Gordon, and admittedly, I don't know a lot about Flash Gordon. I'm not like a Flash Gordon fan, but I do know that Flash Gordon is one of those properties that if somebody's going to take it on, it's because they love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what's exciting, too.
It's going to be tough, man. I feel like it's like you get the Green Hornet problem. It's something that was popular when, like, you know, people who are literally, like, in hospitals right now on their deathbed watched. But no one our age, like, maybe you saw that movie from the 80s that they talked about in TED.
Yeah, I saw it on, like, TBS or something when I kid. Because I don't know much about the property, but it's like, it might be they're banking off of the success of Guardians. Kind of situation.
Maybe.
Because Guardians is like super weird and out there in space, and then so maybe Ming the Merciless isn't such a bizarre thing anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't think I've ever seen Flash Gordon now that we bring it up, but like I'll still go see it probably. You know, if it gets even halfway, if it's even like 30% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, I'll probably see it just because it promises to be like fun and sort of superhero-y and, you know.
Irreverently superhero-ish.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's nothing that I have a particular interest in, but Matthew Vaughn is the guy that could actually make me be more interested in it.
I agree, but it's such an old franchise, you know? I mean, like, if you think about it, I mean, I know there was an 80s movie which I maybe saw as a kid, but other than that, it's a very, very old, it's sort of like the Green Hornet problem, I think.
It's a non-starter of a franchise.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't do anything on its own.
But they've tried Flash Gordon a few times. The 80s movie wasn't a success, it was kind of a bomb, and they also did a TV series
to be
that
fair,
didn't work out either.
Everybody was on cocaine. So, like...
Yeah, I'm always kind of excited to see something that Matthew Vaughn's doing, because I think he's definitely earned my respect in that way. Loved Kingsman, like Kick-Ass a lot. But this also just reminds me of how much, like, how grateful I am whenever they make some original science fiction or, like, action. I feel like Matthew Vaughn could also just make a Flash Gordon-esque thing and it would be every bit as good, if not better, but, like, nobody would give him $200 million to make it.
I think we're in a weird little gray area right now.
Yeah.
They're willing to take a chance, but it still has to be an established property.
Right.
Even if it's Flash Gordon, even if it's Guardians, even if it's Kingsman, they'll take a chance, but it still needs to be a book that I can look at and be like, oh, they made a book? Okay, sure.
Yeah.
But I think it's a trend showing that studios and filmmakers in general are trusting guys like Matthew Vaughn to handle things like that.
Yeah, especially him. I mean, I the only one I haven't seen that he's done is Stardust, but I like every movie he's made, which I don't think I could say about any really director working right now.
So anyway, I'm hopefully that continues to pan out because I'm excited I'm excited for more Matthew Vaughn, and I'm excited for the trend of seeing like some of these smaller properties or some of these lesser known properties, properties that aren't starters unto themselves. Get an interesting voice behind them and get made.
We'll see if that actually happens.
I'm hoping that it does.
I doubt it. I really do. I really doubt Flash Gordon's going to happen.
You're literally ruining my Friday.
If he has carte blanche to completely change everything, then maybe it'll happen, but I don't know. We'll see.
This feels like a stupid question even as I ask it, but like, are there enough people still around to get pissed off that you messed up Flash Gordon?
I don't think so.
No.
I think that's the beauty of doing these sort of semi-lesser known properties. Is like the fan base is not as rabid. They're not going to get mad about Ming the Merciless being sort of different than he was in 1936.
Yeah.
Look, point is, I want it to happen.
All right.
Just cuz.
Make it so.
Is that okay with you?
That is fine by me.
Okay,
Yes.
good. I'm glad we came to that accord. Cool. Anna,
Yes.
what were you into this week?
Okay, so you guys are all talking about, bigger stories, bigger budget things. I'm going to take it down a notch here. So a couple weeks ago, we were talking about indies and fan-funded projects, and I brought up Kung Fury. The movie's still not out, but I don't know if you guys heard there's a music video because they got for their title track David Hasselhoff to do a song called True Survivor, and the music video is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. If you saw the Kung Fury Kickstarter video and you were like, oh my god, this is crazy, silly, stupid, amazing. The music video for True Survivor is even better if you're having a bad day. Watch it because it will make your day amazing.
Yeah.
Nice. David what has he been up to?
Apparently making this video.
Sadly eating burgers on the floor. That was the last time I saw
was so
David
long
Hasselhoff.
ago.
I know. I haven't seen him since, though.
No, he just randomly shows up on like TV shows and like movies, so he can get enough money to get more plastic surgery, and he keeps on going.
He's one of those guys now.
It's amazing. I mean, if you're like me and you grew up in the '80s and you remember 80s music videos, it is really the most fun thing ever.
Yeah.
He's literally sitting in front of a white Lamborghini with a smoke machine going on, and he's like up against it, like
Is there a girl on the hood?
No, but his pants are so tight, he doesn't move throughout the whole thing.
He's just leaning like awkwardly.
At one point, no, he stands awkwardly, and then at some point they come back to him and he's leaning awkwardly.
Yeah. He gets like rolled in Hannibal Lecter style. Like
Probably, because he clearly can't move. It's amazing.
And they show all these shots from the movie, which I think is coming out in May.
Yeah.
And,
well, that's the date supposedly. Apparently, they got enough money that they're going to be doing screenings in Sweden.
Yeah.
So watch out, Avengers.
Yeah, right?
Watch out. Yeah.
Luckily for them, Avengers comes out first, because there would be definitely some problems.
Everybody will be well over the Avengers
exactly.
by the time Kung Fury comes out. What is it about again?
Okay, so a kung fu cop. He has
Actually, you know what? I'm sold.
Yeah.
And then
Time travel.
Time travel. Kung Fuhrer.
Yeah, he fights
dinosaurs.
Hitler,
that's
who
right.
knows.
That's right.
Yeah, Kung Fu.
Okay.
It looks amazing.
Time traveling Kung Fu cop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
and there's Vikings and dinosaurs and Thor.
Power glove.
What else do you want?
Yeah, totally.
You know?
100%. It's true though, because I was feeling a little like not happy, and then I watched that and I was like, yeah, maybe
Everything's fine. Because
Yeah.
the world can still produce things like this.
Exactly. It was a wonder drug. It was a wonder elixir.
That's great. That's good news. So everybody go watch that later.
Yeah.
We'll watch it on Friday. Cool. Dave.
Well, I guess I was gonna bring up the Batman stuff since we already talked about that. One of the things I did want to bring up was there's some interesting casting going on with X-Men Apocalypse. So Ben Hardy, who's an actor I don't really know, he's an English actor. He's gonna play Angel, which is exciting because of course Apocalypse, Archangel, that possibly happening is really exciting. And I think there was some Bryan Singer art that he put up about that.
Yeah, there was one where he was like in a cage in like a little underground circus looking area where you saw his actual wings, and then you also saw like the metal wings.
And for me growing up, Archangel was awesome. He was the coolest angel was ever, and so that's cool. But I think most shocking news is, and it depends on how you feel. Either the most shocking news is that they're adding Psylocke, which is a huge fan favorite from the 90s, or that it's Olivia Munn. It really depends on who you are, or it could be the combination of the two. Psylocke was one of my favorite characters when I grew up, growing up reading the X-Men, and she's
a kid getting a comic book with Psylocke on the cover.
Yeah. It was the best.
We know why it was our favorite.
Exactly.
She was my favorite for a little while.
There's a reason why Jim Lee became the most popular comic book
exactly.
artist of his time, and kind of still is. But she's like this rad ninja, and and has really cool powers and interesting backstory. And it's just fascinating though that Olivia Munn has definitely arrived. Like it wasn't a. Yeah, it was a shock actually both, because she's not really family friendly either. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they make her look in the movie. But that. It's cool. Actually, I'm really happy they're doing Psylocke, and good for her. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
It should be a big opportunity for her, because I mean, she's on the Newsroom. Was on Newsroom. Is Newsroom still a show?
No idea.
I
don't know. I didn't give it much of a chance. To be perfectly honest. But anyway, so she was apparently quite good on Newsroom.
She was quite good at it, in a way that it was very un-Olivia Munn-esque.
Right.
Or at least what one
very
would...
un-Attack of the Show-esque?
Yeah, like what you would consider the Olivia Munn brand, which was Attack of the Show and occasionally attempting Ninja Warrior or whatever.
In terms of Psylocke, I mean, she certainly looks the part. I never saw Newsroom, so I don't have any idea of her acting ability. But, I mean, she certainly looks the part. She's very divisive, though, because a lot of the people in the geek community feel that she's been very negative towards them and has done some sort of bullying kind of things online, and a lot of people in the geek community kind of hate her.
Well, there's that episode where she's the time period where she sort of felt like she outgrew Attack of the Show, and then was kind of which ultimately it's like, whatever.
Yeah.
We all get tired of our jobs at some point, you know?
I also sometimes think it's unfair to blame people for their ambition. A lot of people that do stuff like, you know, G4 were just actors who weren't acting yet. And on top of that, you know, when you really listen to stories from people working at G4, they knew it was a sinking ship for a long time.
Sure.
So maybe she didn't handle everything the best way she could have, but I also don't want to begrudge her for attempting to be an actress and succeeding.
And I also don't begrudge people getting mad at her for...
Yeah. I mean, the thing is...
It's whatever. Like, it's a thing that happened, whatever. She's an actress now, move on.
Exactly.
I think all actors...
She's in Mordecai, thank you very much. So, come on.
Everyone saw that.
Exactly.
Right, that was so good.
But I think all actors and actresses should sort of take a note from The Rock. Like, if they're leaving something that's this sort of a niche thing, you know, they should still have the respect for what they were doing and the respect for the fan base that they grew while they were there, and they can clearly still move on to other things and
remember where you came from.
Yeah.
You know, because she wouldn't have been on Newsroom or in Mordecai or or in something incredibly revealing as Psylocke in the upcoming X-Men Apocalypse movie. Like, had she not been on Attack of the Show.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The part that I'm most curious about is going to be how they deal with her origin story in X-Men. Because even in Days of Future Past and even in First Class, they don't really... They did a good job of like, hey, here are mutants. They exist. These are my powers. Great. And we were like, yeah, I buy it. Let's move on.
Yeah.
So they might not deal with it at all. She might just be a psychic ninja to start with. That'd be fun. But like seeing how much or little they choose to dive into, like she was sort of aristocratic English like lady then who gets transformed into an Asian psychic martial artist. Is I doubt they'll use any of that at all. I can't see them doing that.
No, those X-Men movies, only like 4 people are allowed an origin story. Right. If you're not Xavier, Magneto, Rogue, or Wolverine, you really don't get an origin story, right? Like, who else?
Not in the cinematic.
In the movies, I'm trying to think of anyone else who really had a big, like, Iceman only kind of.
They kind of halfway gave you one for Nightcrawler in X2, but not really.
Not really.
You just saw a poster, a circus flyer or something was like all... I feel bad Alan Cumming isn't coming back, but I am glad Nightcrawler's coming back because he's a rad character. Yeah, Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler was really great.
Yeah,
that was one of those castings, and Singer's done a good job about that. I mean, even going all the way back to Hugh Jackman, he's done a good job of casting people that you wouldn't really expect, and then like, whoa, that guy's good.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let us know what you think about all of that stuff down in the comments below. Have you watched the Batman vs Superman trailer in all of its glorious Chilean cell phone HD? Let us know what you think about it down in the comments. Let us know what you think about Matthew Vaughn, about Michelle McLaren and Patty Jenkins and Wonder Woman, about Flash Gordon, about Kung Fury, about casting in the X-Men universe. Let us know what you think about all of it down there. Click like and subscribe. Come back next time for more movie news on CineFix Now!
Yay! You know, we didn't even talk about Ryan Gosling in the new Blade Runner.
We didn't.
Yeah. Oh, that was big news.
That was pretty big news.
Yeah.